Welcome to The Other Side of Addiction. This is JD, and I'm here with a beautiful co-host, Trisha. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, everybody. Great to be here.
Yeah, this is different, guys. I'm usually on the other side as the co-host, but we've got some very, very special guests, and I know a lot of you have been waiting to hear this story. And this is the inspiration as to why the other side of addiction is what it is and what it is becoming. So with that, we've got our special guest, again, Jenann Richards, giving her story.
Hello.
As you guys know, with her and Al sitting right here, our main host. And
this is weird sitting right here.
And the one that's... Again, this is why we have the other side of addiction. So with that getting started, guys, we're just going to get right into it. Obviously, we know Al's story, and the struggles that he's been through over the last few years, and, with Jenann and going through the alcohol and losing, Al, you losing your job, and you guys going through losing your house, and pretty much going from feeling what you felt was at the top of your life to rock bottom. So with that, let's get started. Where it all began.
Do you want to start or you want me to start?
I want you to.
You want me to start? Everything started about 12 years ago. Just 12 years ago, this past July, 2009. 2009 is the year that really it's supposed to be kind of your happy time because we just got married, and you're supposed to be starting your life and working together on creating this fairy tale life that so many of us think that we're creating, which really doesn't happen, But we got married in May of 2009. July of 2009, I lost my job of 24 years. August of 2009, she lost her dad. And then, I don't know, I think it was 10 months, 12 months after that, we lost our house.
I think it's important that we say how I lost my dad.
So she lost her dad due to an overdose, right? Heroin overdose. So, and her and her dad didn't really have a really good relationship because of, things from the past and the addictions and things like that. But, things after losing the house, it's kind of like, and Jenann mentioned this one time before, it's like we switched sides. I was the one that was partying my ass off every weekend. I had a stressful job and I was doing coke and drinking beer, and that was Friday and Saturday night. And then on Sunday, I'd get my shit together and work my ass off throughout the week. And then Friday, I'd start it all over again. And she had no clue. She knew I was drinking, but she didn't know I was doing any of the other stuff. But, so you want to tell the story now?
Yeah. Because you always seem to forget that I did know.
You guys need a talking stick?
Yeah.
Concept back from what?
Yeah. It's your turn.
Your turn.
So, I think it was a year or so after we got together that we came home from the New Year's Eve party. And on our way home from the New Year's Eve party, I had known something was going on in that house. And I didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
But I was really silent on the way home, and you said something about it. You remember that?
Yeah, I do remember that. Yeah.
And so you told me that you were doing coke.
Yeah.
And when we first started dating, I told you that anything else besides alcohol was not acceptable to me because of my dad.
Right. Yeah.
And this was before he died. And so you told me that we were doing coke. And so I asked you to promise me that you wouldn't do it anymore. So then I find out a month after we got married that you lost your job because of a dirty UA for coke.
Yeah.
So then.
That started everything, and then, like I was saying, we switched spots. I started pulling away from everything because I wanted to figure out who I was, where I wanted to go in life. I just had this big shock. I think I was depressed for a couple of weeks, and it was Jenann that really kicked me in the ass to to get me going, because every day she came home from work, excuse me, and I'd still be laying in bed. And I think after 2 or 3 weeks of that, she finally came home one day and says, "You're painting the frickin' living room." And I'm like, "No, I'm not." And she goes, "Yeah, you are, because you're better than this." And we had all these gift cards from our marriage, and went and found a paint, and little by little I started doing things, and that really helped me kick the depression to the curb and really start thinking about who I wanted to be as a person and where I wanted to go. And I was doing some really deep soul searching, and while I was heading that direction, I think the tipping point finally happened for her, and that's for her to say, but I'm just saying it by my eyes, what I was seeing. The tipping point just hit, and next thing I knew, man, she was starting to hide bottles in the garage, and she kept going out in the garage. And I'm like, "What the hell is she going out in the garage, man? That's like my man cave. I go out there all the time." And finally saw her one day sifting through some stuff to try to find one of her bottles, and we ended up losing our house, and we didn't have the money for things. All the retirement was being used to basically try to save our house, and we went through that pretty quick. And we went living at friends' houses. We lived in basements for a little bit. A couple friends took us in, which we are very, very grateful for. I mean, it put a roof over our heads, and it seems like neither one of them worked out in the long run after that, because we were in a bad spot. Jenann's drinking was getting extremely bad. Kind of like you said, JD, on a show once, that I was addicted to my wife's addiction, and you hit the nail on it, because I never ever thought of it that way until you said that. And you were so spot on, because that's when my life changed to where everything I did every single day of my life was to catch her drinking. That's all I gave a shit about, because she was lying, telling me no, she wasn't drinking. I mean, basically I lied to her about stuff for years, and now she's turning around lying to me, and all I wanted to do was to prove that she was freaking drinking, even though I knew, because she could wobble and hardly stand up and slurring her words. But when you're asking an alcoholic, they'll still try to tell you, "No, I ain't drinking."
I've heard that.
Yeah,
I'm fine.
I'm fine.
And
Yeah,
I think it's interesting too, because it's justifiable. You did this. I mean, they talk about resentments and being the number one offender of causing relapse with us people in recovery, and that's just a perfect one. Like Jenann could tell her story to anybody, and 9 out of 10 women would be like, "Yeah, look at what you did. If you had my life, you'd need a drink too." So it's this thing that's just kind of fueling each other. I can see.
And it's
Yeah.
like,
It's a cycle.
in Jenann, you, again, going through what you guys went through, that triggering point, Al, you're drinking and partying and having your Coke, every weekend after work, right? And so this stuff's going on. Well, then you get to that point again, you lose your job, and you guys are trying to use the retirement to save it. All the stress in the finance spot almost probably feels like it's falling on Jenann's
it
shoulder.
was falling on her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And taking that load when you're the sole bearer of your finances. And I've seen this too, that finances can be the number one toll to a relationship, to going down, because when you're not in a clear mind and you're not feeling like you're in a place of security, you don't know where to turn to, so you turn to things that try to help fill that void.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been there in that aspect
I was paying anything. I mean, I was the only one with money, so I was paying for anything that we had, and every time that he started trying to get into something with somebody, it would cost money, and I would say, "Okay, I'll give you the money you need for this." He would say, "I believe in this person. This person's going to help me out here." And I would believe in him, so I would give him the money, and then it didn't turn out, and we just lost that money. And it would go over and over and over again, and here I am just trying to help him as much as I could, and then my drinking just started getting worse and worse and worse, and all I wanted the whole time was just to be back where we were drinking on the weekends and just having a normal life during the week.
And
is
is it fair to say you're trying to support your husband, but you have this resentment. So you stuff it and you stuff it and you stuff it. Yeah. And then he's got a resentment brewing.
Yeah, mine's starting to brew.
Yeah. And I mean, all marriages have struggles, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
People get through hard things, but I can just see the stage getting set here.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, and it was being set very quickly. I mean, I go back and look at where things were 12 years ago, and I sit and I got goosebumps even thinking about it. I just sit back and go, my gosh, now I can see how every frickin' step was taking place, but at that time you couldn't because you have the blinders on, and I know I made things harder even for Jenann because I had chose not to work for corporate America. I gave 24 years to a place, and I'm pretty sure if the original owner was still there and owned the company, I probably would have got a slap on the wrist, maybe some suspension, and say,
Classes.
Don't ever let this happen again. But I was made an example of.
Oh, yeah.
And for me, it hit me so hard just going, okay, I gave my heart and soul to this place for 24 years, and I've made mistakes. Everybody makes mistakes in their employment, but and this one, yeah, I guess it could have been a huge mistake, but still, it was like, man, I gave everything, and this is what I've got to show for it. It's nothing. So
with that, given 24 years to a company, obviously working for a corporation, which I've been down as well, I'm just relating, but obviously there gets in that it becomes really stressful because at the end of the day, let's admit it, your job's not secure. You're really replaceable, right?
Oh, all of us. My grandpa told me that years ago. Years ago.
So being replaceable, so you're trying to do a good job. You're dealing with all the chaos at work, and in your position, you were in a higher up position at that point, right?
Yeah,
and
so I had a ton of responsibility.
So over people and making sure things and operations are running correctly, So your escape from that was to go home and drink and have some Coke,
Oh yeah, that was my escape.
Which I got to be honest over here. Who can do recreational Coke? That's incredible. But I'm an addict in recovery, so I'm just that's amazing. But I get it.
That was my escape.
It's our dream. Like she said, she'd love to get back to.
And
she crossed that line or the switch.
Yeah.
Well, but then now going to Jenann, obviously you had that, so that was hard. And then Jenann, you're supporting the house. You guys are going through the retirement funds that you did have. And with that, Al, you mentioned that he was trying different businesses, trying different things and stuff. In the hopes and dreams that something else is going to work out that's better than having the control of corporate America telling you what not to do.
Punch a clock.
Right.
Yeah. And I understand that because I've been there in the aspect, I'm the one that's put in for the businesses, and I've been the sole going under that financial stress of not knowing where it's coming from next is very hard. But believing in your spouse or believing in your other, and in this, I'm just saying that I'm looking at this whole thing in that, just to that moment, that it's a blessing, because I believe if Al didn't go through those businesses and trying, trusting and putting good faith in people and opening his mind to possibilities, whether it would have been an MLM per se, or, I don't know what kind of businesses they were.
There was a couple of those in there.
But,
not all of them, but there was a couple. Yeah.
But a couple, but you opened your mind. If you wouldn't have opened your mind then, I think that was key factors, and I believe God makes no mistakes. Timing's everything, right? But in that, if you wouldn't have opened your mind back then, and you were still working that corporate job today, you wouldn't have opened your mind to those kinds of possibilities, and you wouldn't be here.
No.
Oh, I totally agree with that. Yeah. I knew he had to change just as much as he did, and I knew I don't regret any of that, any of that part of it at all. I don't regret any of this.
Yeah. Because
it made me who I am today, but it's made him who he is today too, and he is such an amazing man now. I feel like I'm one of the most luckiest women on the planet, to have him in my life. So
after that, you hit your tipping point, you hit your boiling point where it's like, when it started, obviously it usually starts out small, right? You're not going to blackout stage from the get-go.
No. It was in about 2014, I started drinking on a daily basis. We have Wyndham, World Mark by Wyndham, and so every year on our anniversary, we took time on a timeshare to go to a different place in the U.S. Usually it was close to home, like Colorado and those states. And this last time we went to, was it Estes Park?
Estes Park, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And that weekend, or however long we're gone, we usually drink almost the whole time. And then we come home and get back to life normal, you know. This time I did. I just continued to drink. Continued hiding it from him. And then we got to a point where, you know, I got away with saying, and it was true for the most part, was saying I have to have at least a few shots before I go to bed or I won't be able to sleep. This was before I was on prescription medication to help me go to sleep. And so we had a bottle in the house that I was able to take a few shots from every night. But I also had a bottle in my Xterra that when I went out and smoked at night or in the evening time after work, I would take a shot out of that. So I got more than just my few shots, you know. I was pretty drunk by the time I got to bed. I don't know if Al wants to speak to any of that, but I know he knows about it and knew about it then too.
Well, it's the progression of the disease, right? I mean,
Yeah.
You've heard, because you're right, most people don't start out. I mean, everybody's addiction looks different. You know, there's late bloomers, there's some that started when they're early, but I think the gist of the promise, it's progressive, and you lead to jails, institutions, or death. That's what's going to happen if you keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You're outlining perfectly, in my eyes, that progression.
Right.
And on your side, being on the other side addiction, to me, the progression's happening. I think you get sick right along with the addict.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the two of you together, right? Like, I don't even think when he pointed out, I thought that was great, that you were addicted to. Because you're thinking you're helping, you're trying everything right. You're trying to shame, you're trying to guilt, you're trying to, you know, the standoff. Yeah, all that stuff, and nothing's working.
No, and I brought that up to Al just to relate on this because me and my wife, we've been through similar things with pills and alcohol, and also too cheating. You know, there came up a point where things were really questionable, and it was like I turned into Detective JD instead of instead of being me and who I was and this person that loves helping people. I was so hell bent on catching, like, who are you texting? What, you know, you're drinking, you're driving. Why are you lying to me? Like, you know, I'm sorry. Like, a cop seeing you right now, like, you're done. Like, that's how bad this is. Like, I don't understand why you keep doing it. Or, like, what am I doing to cause you to do this? Like, why? Like, is this, like, you love them so much that you're, like, willing to admit that sometimes maybe there's a point where you shouldn't be together, but you're like, but you love them. You want to, you know, this isn't them. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah. In fact, I wanted to ask Al a question. As a man, it seems to me your self-esteem and confidence, first of all, losing your job. Second of all, your wife is, you know, the main breadwinner. Third of all, you're trying to do these different ventures that are failing. What was your self-esteem like during all of this? And, I mean, the fact that she's behaving like this, did you own the fact it was your fault she was doing this? Like, you caused it?
Yeah, there was definitely times when I thought that. I did a talk at Corner Canyons Rehab a couple of weeks ago, and a young kid that was there asked me almost that same type of question. And guilty, oh, hell yeah. Yeah, there was times that I felt so freaking guilty, like it was me that pushed her over the edge.
Okay.
And we would get in arguments, and I'm not throwing this back on her because it was still me, but we would get in arguments, and she would be like, I finally thought I had a man that was actually had his shit together, and then all this happened shortly after, and
Ouch.
that was just dumping more fuel on what was going on inside of me. And I don't think she realized she was doing it. It's just that's how I was taking it. And yeah, I mean, guys are supposed to be the breadwinners. We're supposed to be taking care, and here we are, we have no kids. Our kids are grown. We're grown adults, and
Except for
now, stupidity
Right.
caused all this. And to feel that inside, I mean, there's so many times I beat myself up. I mean, there were a lot of times that when I was alone, I just sat and cried because I'm like, I'm the one that caused her to do this, because she's done everything she possibly can. And now I'm starting to get upset with her because she's upset with me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now I'm starting to get upset with her because of where she's going. So it was tough. It was really tough there for a while. And when I started, it's like JD said just a minute ago, God's timing's never wrong. And I was doing insulation at the time. I was selling insulation for energy conservation stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I go to this lady's house, and her name's BB. I still remember her name. Her name's BB. And I go and I inspect her attic, and I come down, and I'm like, yeah, okay, you qualify, and this is what we can do, and if you'd like to sit down at your kitchen table, we'll start filling out the paperwork. And she's like, yeah. And I sit down, excuse me, and start filling out all the paperwork, and as I'm looking up at her, asking her questions, she's just looking at me with this look. I'm thinking, what the hell, is there something wrong with me, or do I have insulation stuck in my hair, or what? And all of a sudden she comes out and she goes, Al, I want to give you a book. And I'm like, thank you, BB, but I'm not a reader. No, thank you. And she's quiet. A few seconds later, she goes, no, Al, something's really prompted me
Wow.
that I need to give you this book. And I said, BB, thank you, but really, even things that I'm interested in, I can only read for about 10 minutes, and then I'm bored as hell and I don't want to read anymore. The third time, she goes, I am giving you this book. And she raised her voice, and I'm like, BB, thank you. And she goes, look, you either get the fuck out of my kitchen right now and you don't make a sale, or you take this book. And I am not shitting you. That's exactly how she said it to me. And I'm going, holy shit, okay, I'll take the book, because I needed to make the sale, because I needed to make money. And she gives me this book, and it's Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now.
No way.
And
Wow.
and she even wrote in it. She opens it up and she writes something on the cover, and she's like, something was prompting me to tell you this. So while I was going through my feel sorry for Al inside here, and feeling like I'm the one that pushed Jenann over that edge. I mean, she was already teeter-totter, and it's like I just put my foot up and just, here, go for it, see ya. And I didn't read the book for a long period of time. And then one day I opened it up and I started reading through it, and I'm like, this is kind of crazy. Shortly after I got that book, I started getting emails talking about the law of attraction.
Oh my God.
Now, this was how naive I was about the law of attraction. I'm thinking, what the frick am I getting this dating shit for? Because I never opened them up. I'm like, law of attraction.
Oh.
I'm putting the attraction. So I'm like, frickin', I ain't interested in doing this shit. And I kept deleting it. I kept deleting them. Well, one day I went to go delete, and I actually opened it up, and I started looking, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's not a dating. What the hell is this? And I start reading about the law of attraction. So I have this book, and I have these emails, and all this started happening within a couple weeks' time. So, and it had been about 2 months since I had gotten that book. But then once I did, all this stuff started happening.
Wow.
I started reading, and I started paying attention to stuff, and then that's when my attitude started changing. That's when, and Jenann could probably tell you, it's like, man, I'm getting into the frickin' crystal skulls and looking at crystals, and I mean, I'm starting to go to events, and I was doing my best to go to free events, so it wasn't costing any money. And I just started getting out there and started doing this networking, and really started getting involved. Got involved with the West Jordan Chamber, and they were so I'm so grateful for them for just opening up their arms and bringing me in, because I had no money to pay for a membership, and they're like, "Oh, just volunteer and wink, wink. We'll fit you in."
Yeah, I got to the point where I was like, I can't support you in that financially. I can't
But
do it for you anymore.
But it's all inside job work, right?
Yeah.
You're doing the stuff
Yeah.
that Al needs
Yeah.
to do.
So
Yeah.
that's like, to answer your question, I hope and I have, that I started taking that guilt and that shame and that embarrassment, and I started taking it and I started putting it somewhere else. It was really starting to help me pull it out. Even though it would still fester, and it would still come up, especially in times when things got heated and the alcoholism started getting bad. But it really started helping me start going down that whole different path.
So with that, so you're finding this place where things are starting to shift for you, right?
As I was feeling that they were starting to, yeah.
And Jenann, at these points, obviously he's going through these changes and all this stuff. You are battling a very hard internal battle at this point.
Yeah.
So-
I was getting more lonely because I felt like I was the least important thing in his life. I felt like the chamber was everything to him, and anything outside of me was more important to him. And so I have to correct myself. In 2011 is the first time I went to rehab.
What caused that? Why did you go?
Al. And that was before I started drinking daily. That was when I was just sneaking. That's when we first lost our house. Completely. We were kicked out the month before, and then...
Was it, if you don't do this, you're going to divorce her, or was it, I see a problem starting?
I can't remember what it was exactly.
Gotcha.
I think a lot of it was me just pushing, saying that there was a problem.
I think it was just I loved him so much that I
You were
was
gonna do
willing to do anything for
And
him.
of course, it was the wrong way of doing it. She needed to do it for her, but of course, what the hell do we know? We're on the other side. We just think this is the best thing for him.
Sure.
But
Yeah, so I went to Recovery Ways for about a month. Because back then, that's all they would take you at. Your insurance would let you stay for. I was there for 30 days, and the next day after I got home, Al wanted me to go with him on a job. I think you were going to look at concrete for your brother or something like that.
yeah.
And I said no. I went out to the garage. I found... Was it your bottle or Randy's bottle? I think it
wasn't mine.
It was Randy's bottle out in his garage. We were staying with a friend of ours named Randy, and his bottle was out in the garage, and I found it and drank it. So the day after I got out of rehab, I was drunk again, and I was in no way ready for
To do your step
to
one.
be sober. I didn't even think I was a drunk then. For me, in my mind, a drunk was somebody that drank every day that couldn't live without it, that had to have it, and I wasn't there yet. So back to 2014, that is, I was still holding a job. I was pretty much like Charlie always says she was, as a functioning alcoholic. I still had a job. I never drank at work, before, during, any time. It was after work, and it was usually not until after dinner, even, and then I would drink till it was time to go to
That was
Yep.
her time.
that 5 o'clock. Yep.
5 o'clock somewhere.
Yep.
It's such a disease of denial,
It
As
is.
long as
It's
I
so-
can keep a job, as long as I can make it till 5, I don't have a problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
We've got a relative that we know if they call us at 8:30, like don't answer the phone because
That's
they've
awesome.
been drinking.
It's drunk uncle.
You know the timing, so
Wow.
you know the timing on it. Like if you get the call at a certain time, you're good. You're gonna have a normal conversation. If you
Wow.
answer at 8:30, you're gonna have the same conversation 20 times.
Interesting.
Yep. Yeah, it was that kind of thing, really.
Well, you and I met probably 2015.
It
so
was 2015, yeah.
you must have done rehab, and we're getting sober.
That was my second time
Second
in
time.
rehab, yeah.
Which is where I first met Al.
Yeah.
And may I tell our listeners my first impression of you?
Well, that's what this show's about. So
Hey, I gave my first impression.
Yeah,
so.
he
Oh,
gave
you
his
did?
first impression a couple of weeks ago. It
Well-
starts with a D.
You know, knowing a little bit of Jenann at this point and some of her shenanigans, and I remember and how positive she spoke about you. I remember thinking, wow, I can't believe a husband's even still hanging around, because none of mine did. I mean, there's a lot of love there. I knew there was a lot of love there. And then when I met you, again, I was excited to meet you. I knew there was a lot of love and support, but man, you were an angry, bitter, cynical, comes to mind, because here I'd been sober a while, sponsoring Jenann, and if I may say that, is it okay to disclose? And, and I'm trying to tell you there's hope and and you're just like, yeah, right. Yeah, I've seen it. I've heard it. Mm-hmm. How do you know an alcoholic's lying? Their lips are moving. Like all of that stuff is, and I had to respect that. I mean, that's your experience, and I can't even imagine why you would have any hope at this point. So I would try to tell Jenann, talk is cheap. We need to make changes, and that's so much louder than saying this time is different. This time is different. I promise you, this time is different.
Well, that's the thing, when you go through it so many times,
Oh, yeah.
you both did, it's like, hey, I promise it's going to be different. And then it's like, it's not a lengthy period of time that you go where things are going good, and then it's like you have this fall off the cliff. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's only been a couple days, or it's been a day, or it's been a couple weeks, and then the other one might play it off like, oh, well, that was forever ago, and you're like, 72 hours? Are you for real? Like,
Yeah, I'm better now.
Our timelines.
Why aren't you trusting me? It's been a week.
Exactly.
We've had some of those conversations.
Exactly right.
Yes.
Yeah.
and not that making those progresses, are
No,
important. Those
I
days that
agree.
you stay sober, as you mentioned, who was
Who
it?
was
The
it?
guy
Yeah.
that got mad at you, Like, don't take that away from her.
Jim.
Oh, yeah.
Because every day that they're sober, even if they have a lapse, doesn't mean they take that all away from them, right?
Right.
Yeah,
But-
somebody almost punched out.
Really? Well, I remember asking Jenann, how long do you think it will take Al to trust you, to forgive you? Because I had that question posed to me, and I remember thinking, oh crap, did I miss that part in the book? Is there a formula for how many years you use divided by how many, And anyway, this counselor said it takes as long as it takes. And
That's
so
what
in
she
other
tells me all the
words,
time.
I tell her that all the time, and I've got to be quite honest. In my experience, people have forgiven me way quicker than I deserved, but it was on their time frame, and it's been different. So anyway,
And I think that's a big thing, and a big part of all of this is forgiveness for each other and forgiveness for yourself. Because if you're not, it's part of the healing process, right?
Mm-hmm.
But
Go ahead. I didn't mean
But
to
the more
interrupt
that you learn about forgiveness, like Al and Jenann, right? You obviously had to get to a point things started triggering because of life falling apart, right? Losing the house, losing the job. Al, you had to learn how to forgive her, right? But in order to forgive her, or for Jenann to forgive you, you guys had to learn how to start forgiving yourselves first before you could the other way.
You're 100% right, but that shit didn't happen until way down the road.
Right, no, but we carry that guilt. Like Tricia was mentioning, we carry that shame, we carry that guilt. We even still carry it to today, to things that happened probably prior to that. We've talked a little bit about your childhood. Jenann, again, I'm hearing now that your dad passed away from a heroin overdose, but that obviously had to trigger that you had some experiences in your younger life that you had to deal with too, that may have opened up the door or put you in scenarios, that affected you from back then that led that way.
Yeah.
We're all dealt cards. We're all dealt, sometimes we're dealt a good deck and sometimes we're dealt a shitty deck, And that's, I've heard that, but
That's why I don't play blackjack.
there's a saying, the difference between the guy that's down living on the street and the guy up in the executive tower, there's nothing. You both bleed the same. You both put your pants on one leg at a time. He was just dealt a different set of cards. Now it's just depends on how good we get at poker if we can change that, right?
Well, and we have both experienced things through childhood, and we have found out, JD, through guests on our show that I would say 99.9% of them had some kind of trauma during their childhood or early adult life, you know. And to me, down the road, it took me a long time, but like I said earlier in the show, Jenann was already teeter-tottering, you know, on the edge.
Mm-hmm.
And then when the crap happened with me and all the stuff that was going on, I basically, like I said, I put the boot to her to tip her over. I mean, I'm the one that caused her, I felt I'm the one that caused her to go off that edge.
Right.
She was already, and I knew of a few things that she was battling inside, because we were together 3 years before we even got married, and we shared some personal things, and we got to know each other pretty well, and I got to know some of the damage that she had inside. But also at the same time, I was being so freaking selfish with me of I can hide this or I could do whatever, not realizing that the damage was going to turn around and come back and put more damage inside of her.
Right.
You know, and then, and I just did a post on Facebook, and it was talking about how a real man doesn't make his woman cry. And I put it on there because I look back now and I look at how many times I threw daggers at this woman when she was already hurting so deep inside. You know, but Trish brought it up, but it's what we know, because we're given that hard love, and we're trying to do the best we can to say, get your fucking shit together, listen to what I'm saying, because you're better than this, you're better than this. But all I was doing is I just kept, hold still, hold still, just kept throwing stuff at her, not realizing all I was doing was creating, as I put in the post, I was dumping fuel on an already burning and broken soul.
And she doesn't dare say anything because, you know, she knows she's, or believes she's broken. And so for her to set a boundary, or for her to, you know, she's off doing all this stuff, it's almost like you have no rights. You have no opinion. You don't matter, you know.
Right.
And you guys started off on this dance, right? From the time I first met you, there was this dance, and it was vicious.
Yeah, you saw that dance.
Years. You're a good dancer.
You saw a dance once when you came home.
Oh
from
yeah, we did. But what I mean by
Yeah.
that is, you know, rehab, and then relapse, and then I'm gonna leave you, and then, you know, leaving her, and then back together, and then it was vicious, it was relentless, and it was destructive.
That
Can I
circle spun for many, many years in the same flippin' direction over and over and over, because she would get out of rehab, she'd be sober for a little while. I'd be pissed as hell with her for 2 or 3 weeks. Pretty soon I'd start opening up my soul, and as soon as I did, it was like clockwork.
It wasn't as soon as you
But
did.
that's how it felt to me.
I know.
As soon as she did, it's like I spread my legs and said, "Go ahead, kick him, just kick him," and she did.
Oh well, that's the
You
thing.
know?
You get into that
So-
point where it's almost like, again, that clockwork. You know, time wise, it's like, okay, she's good, she's clean, she's sober, she's not gonna. But you knew that you're like, okay, time wise, it's not if, it's when. You know, you're like, okay, when is this gonna happen again? Because you know it's coming.
Right.
You know, and I can relate to that just because, again, the things that goes with my wife, we get to where we do really good, you know, and then it gets to where it does better longer, you know. We go for 9 months and stuff, but there's usually, it happens, something comes up or happens once or twice a year now, and it's still frustrating because you're like, God, you're doing so freaking great, like, but knowing that,
You're human.
you know, and again, we are, and she is, and Jenann, and we're all human, right? And things happen in life. Life is not easy. It really isn't. We have challenges everyday life, right? So it couldn't be just our spouses, but the daggers being thrown at you, Jenann, again, you know, having that also too, do you feel, and I'm sure it went the same way, you were throwing daggers at Al at certain points.
Oh yeah, we were ripping
Yeah.
them back and forth.
But
man.
feeling like you're shrinking, and now you're pinned up against the wall, what do you have left? It's almost a fight or flight, and you can't go back any further, so what are you doing?
And
You're
she's
gonna
the
fight.
designated sick one. That's the other piece here to me, is she's the designated sick one. She's got the drinking, whereas she's got some legitimate concerns and issues.
Yeah.
But it's like we don't even talk about it because all the energy and attention is on you and your drinking.
Yeah.
That's exactly where everything was at.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, yeah. Yep.
So with that, I want to get into, now that you've been into rehabs and going into rehabs, we're going to take a break here in just a second.
Okay.
But leading into 2015 is when you guys met, right?
Yeah.
And then at that point, how many rehabs you'd been into?
In 2015 was my second rehab.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. So and then since then, we'll come back to this. This is where I want to lead off. But you went into multiple rehabs after that as well, right? And then
Yes.
also too, what happened between you
That's
guys?
when my career really started.
So with that, right after this break, we'll jump right back.
Buckle up.
We'll go right into that and go down, and go there and see how.
Go deeper.
Yeah. We'll go deeper.
Okay. All right.
Alrighty.
Sounds good.
Okay. See you guys back in a minute.
How do you start your morning? Start it with a cup of High Point coffee. Because no matter where you go or what you do, it's always better with coffee. High Point Coffee. What's your high point? Located on the corner of 7800 South and Redwood Road in West Jordan. And a special thanks goes out to our partners in Oxford, Mississippi.
This is Gregory, owner of Lift Up Concrete, proudly serving the Wasatch Front for the last 12 years, lifting sunken flatwork for both residential and commercial applications. Only fully trained professionals lifting concrete at your residence with the same quality of material and method used at every commercial job we ever do. Don't replace it, lift it. liftupconcrete.net, 801-792-4535. Contact us at liftupconcrete.net, or if you're looking for a complimentary quote, 801-792-4535. Again, 801-792-4535. Again, this is Gregory, Lift Up Concrete Lifting.
Hello, my friends. This is Brad Neufeld, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Resilience Talk Network. You can listen to my show, Resilience, every morning, Monday through Friday at 8 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. On my show, we will be discussing what it takes for you to overcome the day-to-day challenges that all of us face in life, as well as some of the devastating ones that may lead us to feelings of hopelessness and despair. It's my goal to provide you with the tools and skills that you need to overcome anything that is thrown your way. To find out more about my show, visit our website at www.resiliencetalk.com. That's www.resiliencetalk.com. And as always, until we meet again, go for everything that you want in life and make it happen.
Okay, welcome back to the other side of addiction, guys, from our break. Man, this has been, we're just going to use Al's word. It has been so phenomenal.
yes.
Going through. Real quick, guys, we just got to give a shout out and a big thank you to our sponsors here. Again, if it wasn't for them, helping us make this possible, and so we want to we're going to mention them, and then also too just our gratitude and our thanks for that. So first, we're going to thank High Point Coffee down on 7800 South and Redwood Road. Thank you guys so much for your support. Lift Up Concrete. I actually gave Gregory a call yesterday and seeing what we could do. But yeah. Again, thank you guys so much. Surf Pro, USARA, Utah Support Advocate for Recovery and Awareness, and then one of our newer ones, Taffy Town. Right?
Yes.
So Taffy Town, they've been great, and again, thank you guys so much. Taffy's not a good addiction for me either, but yeah. And then Computer Hospitals, right? Again, they've been great. They're a company that they're very honest, very transparent. They're not in there to just, your computer's not working. So yeah, go in there. They will take care of you and do it with honesty and transparency, which is very grateful in the business community. And then we also we got to thank Brad with Resilient Talk Network. Again, if it wasn't for you, Brad, we have a lot of gratitude for you and a lot of love. So I hope you know that, and
I'm feeling the love,
and we do appreciate it. So again, thank you so much, Brad. So with that, jumping back into your guys's into the story of Jenann and Al. At this point, you'd been to 2 rehabs when you and Tricia had met, and so from the story that I know, obviously several other times came into submission of having to go through those trials. So let's go from there.
Okay, so I was in my second rehab when I met Trish. She.
Touche.
I love it. I love it.
Touche.
Oh, I thought she said touche.
No.
Do share.
Do share.
We love this
Sweet.
story, don't we?
We do.
So, one of my favorite meetings is the Wednesday night AA meeting in Murray. And she was randomly there. She doesn't go there on a steady basis. But it was one of my favorite meetings. And the rehab that I was at goes there every week. And so I was there with the rehab, and she was there, and I was just with my friends, just excited about being at a meeting, because it's so much better than being at the rehab, And so they called on her to share, and I've always heard, if they say something that inspires you, then they're the ones you should pick for a sponsor. And that just happened to be the best day of my life as far as my recovery, because she got up and she told this funny little story about needing to go to her granddaughter's birthday party. And she woke up in the morning and got on her treadmill and had a Bloody Mary while she was working out on her treadmill, and thinking to herself, what the heck am I doing right now? And I thought, that sounds like something I would do, and then try to pretend I'm completely sober, while I'm doing it. So, and that just inspired me, and that made me think, I need somebody just like her. She's going to help me, I've pretty much been with her ever since, and she has helped me through so many things. And there's been times that she's told me, I just don't think I can help you anymore, and those were some of my hardest times, because the person that I am took it as, you're not worth helping, instead of what she was saying, which was,
you're not listening.
I don't know how to help you.
The thing with sponsorship that I'll throw in, because I used to feel it was a lot of pressure, right? Like I was powerful enough to get someone sober, and I would be powerful enough to get someone loaded. But the truth of the matter is, you just get to share with the person what has worked for you. And then if they want what you have, they follow suit, And there's more than
monkey do.
Yeah, and there's more than one way to do this still. I've learned that too. It's a matter of who's left. And so when Jenann was having the continual slips or, they were hardcore relapses for sure. I started feeling like, well, the way I do it is obviously not working. I mean, that's how you take it. You know what I mean? I would never give up. That's how I was sponsored. I would never give up on someone. I'd never fire someone. I mean, I know that sponsors can do that. There's no right or wrong. But I just felt like, what is, missing? So that's what that was about.
Yeah, and I know that.
Yeah.
But it was just me and my self-esteem was thinking, as usual, I'm not worth it.
Right.
Nobody wants to stay. I'm not worth working for. I'm not, that idea in my mind.
The
those
truth
dirty
was,
little thoughts.
I
yeah.
thought Jenann was going to die. I thought Jenann would die from this disease. It was becoming apparent that it was getting that serious.
And I can relate to that. Wife would hop in the car drunk and drive and think things are fine. And it only, even to the point, like, worried about her health, yes, but it was like, you're out making decisions that all you got to do is run that red light. All you got to do is run that stop sign. All you got to do is swerve off the road. All you got to do is pass out. And that's it. End of story. And taking your life or the lives of others for that mentality, you know what I mean? Of thinking, I'm fine.
Yeah.
So, and I gotta, this is no joking matter, but the story of you and the Bloody Mary and running on the treadmill, right? I just pictured you on a treadmill.
I know. At 7 in the morning.
I did the same thing.
I'm picturing it with like when they pull you over for a sobriety test, they're like, walk a straight line, right? I'm picturing, like, she's like, I'm going to practice first thing in the morning.
On high speed.
Yeah, so when they tell me to run it, I'll make it. Sorry. I'm just.
No. I'm so grateful that we can laugh at it, right? Instead of cry, because honestly, I've thought so many times, what part of that was a good idea. And the truth of the matter was, I was going to be with people that I wanted to look my best for. My ex-husband, his family, my kids, and so I just could not face them. And so in my mind, it was a good idea. I'll work out. But in order to be able to work out, I had to have this, beverage instead of a sports drink, Bloody Mary, and it gave me the courage to then go and face those people because of my shame and guilt and all that stuff that we're riddled with. But then when I got there, here's the baffling insanity of it all, and the delusion is that I didn't think anybody knew. And everybody knew. And there was a birthday, like I took a video of my granddaughter's birthday party of us singing, including me. It took me a year to listen to that. When I got a year sober, I listened to it one time, and then I deleted it, because had I had to I would have listened to it again and again to just beat me. Bad person. But the truth was, it was the delusion that happens in our disease, which Jenann
and
was
that's what I
headed there.
related to.
You just could not believe everybody knew when you're slurring and sweaving and.
But in your mind, you're like, I don't know what
I'm
you're talking
fine.
about.
I know.
And we can relate to a story on that.
It's
I
baffling.
mean, that story that we were going to just talk about.
Yep.
With the purse.
I'm feeling really left out over
I
here.
know.
This is my strength right here. This is my strength.
I'm gonna tell this story because she had told on me the same meeting Jenann came to drunk. And what's so funny about being a drunk myself in recovery, how naive you can be. Because I was like, there's no way she can be drinking at this meeting. No way. And she was taking frequent trips to the bathroom and da-da-da-da. And I was like, I think she is. So I was her ride. I drove her home to Al and walked in the house. And I said, Al.
You don't want to talk about how I was at the meeting?
Well, no. She was drunk. It doesn't matter. I mean, the details. Yeah, you guys can figure it out. But the piece was, I remember bringing her home to Al and saying, Al, it was a very hard thing for me because it'd just be easy to be like, we're done, thanks, see you tomorrow. But I said, Al, she's been drinking, And Al was kind of naive too for a minute and was like, are you sure? And I go, yeah, check, And her purse was there. And so he went for her purse to check for her purse.
And it was still on her person.
Yes, and I've got to tell you, to see grown adults play that game where you
Tug of war.
yeah, tug of war. Anyway, it's just the depths that this disease can take us to. I witnessed it. I remember thinking in my mind, how does Al keep staying with Jenann? Like, he's as sick as she is on some level.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and I remember that night so vividly because, I mean, she fought her ass off.
She'd rather die
for me
than
to-
you find that bottle.
Taking that, and as soon as I grabbed that purse and I finally got it out of her hands and I felt the weight, I'm like, son of a bitch, and I opened it up and, not drinking, huh? There's a bottle, and of course I got called every damn name there was in the book, and
I mean, Jenann just wasn't ready.
no,
She was
and
not ready to concede.
again, that like you said, Trish, how the disease, how it grabs a hold of you so bad. Because I remember this one of these last times, and it was not too long before Jenann finally got to where, I mean, she did almost kill herself with this last drunk that she had almost 10 months ago. But I remember she was saying that she wasn't drinking. I know she wasn't because, I mean, she couldn't take one step without going 3 foot this way and another step without going 6 foot that way. She could not,
My goodness.
she couldn't do anything. And you could just see the old cartoon Droopy, the dog, the Droopy, when she was having the drink, it's like her whole face just was melting. It was just everything just hanging off. So she goes outside to have a cigarette, and I'm thinking, like you said, I'm addicted to her addiction. I'm like, I'm gonna frickin' catch her, and I'm gonna prove it to her that she's drinking. So I go out there where the smoking section is, and there she is on her hands and knees, and it's dark outside, and she's going through the weeds. And she grabs, and as soon as she grabs the bottle, she turns, she notices I'm there. And she hurries and stuffs it, and she literally threw her body. It's like what you see in a war movie where a guy is saving the rest of the platoon and he throws his body on top of a hand grenade. She literally threw her body on top of it. And I'm grabbing her by the back of her neck, by her coat, and I'm trying to get her off. And I am so freaking pissed. I'm shaking. I am so mad. I'm just shaking like this, and I remember just pulling her off of there, and I mean just yanking her, and I'm like, "You ain't drinking, hon." I got the bottle, and I remember throwing it at her, and I hit her.
Over it with it.
Yeah, I hit her, knocked her over. I mean, I was so mad, and then those flashes started coming back of what Holly was telling me. I'm
It
gonna
was
be
a
the
plastic bottle, just so you know.
I'm
Plastic.
gonna be the one in handcuffs, and I'm thinking, shit, man, it's gonna come. You know, I mean, it's really gonna. I was so mad and upset, and to see this person who I know is not this person,
Powerlessness.
that this bottle that's this big and the substance that's in there has her to where she's literally willing to throw her whole frickin' body on it to keep you from getting it. And I'm just going, and again, I still don't get it because I'm not in those shoes. I'm learning more about it, but will I ever get to that point? Probably not. But just to see where it took this beautiful soul and how it grabbed a hold of her, and it had such a tight on her that I just didn't get it.
Well, the first step in AA, when they talk about the powerless, this is powerlessness at its finest, and the unmanageability. Our lives have become unmanageable, and so many times people will argue unmanageable because to them it looks like I'm in prison, I'm under the viaduct, I'm this. The unmanageability in that, look at what your marriage had come from 2009 to
Oh yeah.
where it was. Is there a way to talk about what it's like now, like moving forward? Because you're not there anymore.
Well, I was gonna
Right.
ask.
I was gonna say, you guys.
Yeah, we'll get there.
in that.
I like dwelling on the
Um,
positive. I love
I was just
living
gonna
in the
say-
solution.
I was just going to say about what he just said. So we were watching that movie last night. What is it? What was it called? Do you remember?
The 12 Orphans?
Yeah, the 12 Orphans. Have you seen that? It's a good movie about these 12. This orphanage from back in the Depression time.
It's when the Dust Bowl hit back in Texas and all that.
Yeah, and they this guy that was an orphan when he was little, of course, came and started teaching them orphans how to play football, and they ended up getting the state championship in Texas and stuff. Thank you. And so, but there was one point, Martin Sheen was the doctor at the orphanage, and he was a drunk. And towards the end of the show, what's the other guy's name?
It doesn't matter. He was the coach.
Luke Wilson.
Yeah.
Luke Wilson was the coach. And he grabbed the pint, whatever it is, the pint thing
The
from
flask. It was a flask.
Yeah, flask. And he said, I think it's about time you stop this stuff too. And he took it away from him. And when that happened, I looked over at Al and I'm like, that is the hardest thing you'll ever see a drunk do. Let somebody take that bottle away from him. And that's exactly what it did. It triggered me to that moment when he took that bottle away from me. And that's the despair I felt when he took that bottle away. That's why I jumped on that bottle, because at that point in my head, that was my lifeblood. You know, that's what I needed right at that moment.
That was
in
your
my
umbilical
head.
cord.
Yeah. And so that's what it's like for a drunk. That's what it feels like. It feels like that is what's going to make you live.
For this.
Although you know reality is that's what's going to kill you. But when you're in that drunken state, you think that's going to keep you alive. And I just wanted to say that. That's the desperation you feel at that point. So.
Yeah, and just the things that you would do to get away from it. When we were living, she mentioned Randy earlier, but we were living in his place. This was shortly after we lost our home. Her friend called me up, Trina, one day, and Jenann and I had gotten this big fight, and she jumped into her Xterra and took off, and she had been drinking. I mean, I knew she was wasted, and she jumped in her. I was trying to get her keys, but she frickin' pulled a fast one on me and got away. And Trina called me and she goes, "Hey, your wife's sitting in the parking lot and she's frickin' hammered out. What the hell is she doing driving?" I'm like, I tell her the story, what's going on, and she goes, "I'm going to see if I can find out where she's at." And she finally found out where she was at. So she was at a Reams parking lot there in West Valley, and I'm like, okay, I know where it's at, and I'm going to go get her. Well, she saw me pull in the parking lot, and as I looked over on the far side, all of a sudden I see the Xterra taken off, and man, I'm zipping through the parking lot, you know, and she gets out on the street, and I come pulling up behind her, and that was the first time with all this that's happened throughout the years. That's the first time I thought I was going to witness my wife get in a head-on collision and either kill herself or kill somebody, because she's going down the road and I'm chasing her and I'm watching her just slowly going over to the oncoming traffic. And I was on the phone with her friend and I'm going, no, because it's happening. And I can just feel it, and I'm just thinking, what am I going to witness here in front of me? And all of a sudden at the last minute she pulls away and she pulls into this parking lot, and I mean, I was so pissed. I think I was probably like one of the cops on a high-speed chase. I think I reached in there and frickin' grabbed you and yanked you out of that vehicle and threw you in my car. And I had to get her car out of the way, so I jumped in her Xterra, went to go park, and by the time I got parked, I got out. She had jumped in the car seat of my car and frickin' hit the gas, and I rolled up onto the hood. You know, and of course now I'm even more pissed, but just seeing that scare, you know, I was on a text with somebody this morning on Messenger, and I was checking on this lady that I know. I was checking on her sister who's battling with alcohol, and I'm like, hey, I was just thinking about her. How is she doing? And, you know, she was telling me how bad it hurts that she's watching her sister take her life right in front of her. And I started getting tears in my eyes when I was writing her back. I'm like, sweetie, I know exactly what you're feeling, because us on the other side, we can communicate. Us on the other side to somebody that's on that other side, we don't communicate because we just don't get it, you know. And I'm trying to tell her, yes, I know, and this is, you know, keep your chin up. And I told her the last text that I sent her, I said, I just want to say this before I say have a wonderful day, is at least she's still trying. She just got back out of detox, but she's drinking again, but at least she's still trying. You know, she just hasn't thrown her hands up and say, I'm just done, I'm just going to drink myself to death. Because that is one of the things, like you mentioned early in the show, JD, where Jenann has gone through a number of rehabs. I think after the third or fourth one, I'm like, yeah, here we go again. Same old shit. It's that circle, you know. You're going to go in, you're going to get out, you'll be okay. You're going to throw at me going, well, I've been sober for 30 days. Well, great for you. It's while you were in rehab where you can't get alcohol, you know, but that's how we're looking at it. To find her go right back. But
when you feel like you're going into this, you're in this vicious cycle, and you almost sometimes to a point that you're like, this is what my life is. It is. For the rest of my life.
That's how you feel. But where I want people out there to know where I went wrong with this, and what that buddy Jim, who I thought was going to punch me in the face that time I mentioned something, and then one of our guests on our show, Jason, mentioned this. Every day that person is sober should be frickin' celebrated. Not just by them, but by us.
Right.
You know, because maybe she did only go 5 days sober once she got out of rehab. She went 5 days sober. Maybe she did go back into rehab, and the next time she came out, maybe she went 7 days sober. She still went 7 days sober. You know, and instead of celebrating those times, which she wanted me to give her that gratitude. She wanted that going, and I wrote that in my Facebook post. You know, it's like she was looking and starving for that attention and that gratitude, just somebody to say, you know what, congratulations, you know. But no, not me, man. I still kept frickin' throwing those daggers and punching her every chance that I had, because where that addiction took me, it took me so deep into my anger. Nothing she was saying was corresponding with me. I didn't give a shit. Anything she said went this way and came out that way.
Do you feel, Jenann, at points with Al and stuff, that you would drink again because you didn't feel like you were getting the attention and love that you wanted?
Yeah. A lot of times it was out of spite. I did start drinking because what did it fucking matter? He didn't care. He didn't care if I was drinking or not. He didn't care if I was working my ass off to stay sober. Didn't matter to him. Why should it matter to me? He's the only one I care about mattering to, you know?
How have you guys made it?
God.
Incredible story.
I mean, serious. I've shared on the show many times, huh, JD, that I've filed divorce 3 times and I've canceled it 3 times. Something greater than me, something greater than her, has kept us here. I mean, the second time I remember, she was at Epic at that time, and I told her that I was working on it, and she basically begged me. And were you there 6 months that first time? Was it 6 months? And I started seeing.
The only time I was at Epic.
I started seeing this woman that I fell in love with again. You know, and I'm like, oh my gosh, maybe she has it this time, you know, and she's got it. And she'd be like, yeah, you know, I'm coming up on 5 months. Okay, well, it's 5 months, but yeah, you are still in a rehab, but okay, it's 5 months. But then when she'd get out, it's kind of like stuff would start. I mean, things would be good. And so I'd get on the phone and call the law, and I'm like, you know, I just want to cancel it. I don't want to go through with this. Because something inside kept telling me. And then, you know, line up at the starting line. start, boom, everything's off running, and we're back in that frickin' circle again. And it would get to the point where, call him up, yeah, I'm filing for divorce again. But that's the only thing that I can think that has kept us something greater than Jenann and I that has still held us.
And my response to that is a little bit different. I know beyond a shadow of a doubt who it was because of my belief and my spirituality. I know it was God, but for me, it looks a whole lot different than he says, and that's our own perception of the thing. For me, it's different every time for me. Every time I get sober, it's different. And every time I relapse, it's different. And I can't really point it out and explain it all that well, but when I was at Epic and I left Epic, I stayed sober for another 2 months after it.
Yeah.
The thing is, when I got out of Epic, it was just when they were starting the pandemic, and I was not getting help of any kind, except for from my probation officer, and all that was ragging. You need to do this. Okay, I'll do this. How do I do it? I can't figure that out yet, because we don't know how they're gonna, when you'll be able to go in and visit them, or when you'll have an intake done, or, and just a bunch of bureaucratic bullshit. That's all I got from them. And so all I was doing is sitting in the house. We weren't allowed to go anywhere or do anything. So I was just stuck there. I was there for, at home for 2 months. And so that's what I was doing, just struggling for 2 months.
Living between your ears,
Yeah.
as they say.
That's
Yeah.
exactly right, yeah.
And so, but then we go back to 2016. I was sober for a year, 13 months.
13 months.
That was the big one.
We did your steps.
Yeah. The one there, I was sober for 13 months, and I started doing coke with Al.
Yeah, started up again.
Both of you?
I started doing it with
Yeah,
him.
imagine that, right? Freaking imagine
Let's
that.
all gasp.
Yeah.
Right? No, I mean, again, it's...
I know.
I'm learning, and again, they learn the same thing. We learn from each other,
Yeah,
but
he
it's
didn't know that about me.
There's a lot
so-
that happens in, you're
Yeah.
59, right?
58.
58.
It's great.
58. But I mean, in that lifetime, there's a lot that goes on. You can't just cover it in a few hours. You really
Right.
can't. You
No.
So,
I mean, we could be here for another 3-4 hours just talking about.
Yeah, so I'm trying
all
to
this
make
stuff.
this as
No,
short as
you're good.
possible,
No.
but get as much information in as
But
possible.
going to that,
So-
you now...
Yeah,
Yep.
in the end of 2016, we started doing it together. We had a discussion about it, and I mentioned that I thought maybe it would be different because, and we have had a discussion about that before, that we don't necessarily believe that an addiction is an addiction is an addiction. Like most people in
even
AA
said
and
that.
type of things
Yeah, we've even said that on
have-
the show.
said. That
So you're saying cocaine you're not addicted to.
I don't think
I
so.
got you. So you didn't drink while you were...
Right.
I see.
But this one particular time, why I only got 13 months, I did drink.
Gotcha.
Okay. So we had been doing it for a few months, just Coke, and Al would drink and do his Coke when we did it. And it wasn't like every weekend or anything like that. It was
Once in a great while.
once a month or whatever, And it was for about 4 months, you think?
3-4.
And then in February of 2017, I had been sober for 13 months. I think it was almost exactly 13 months.
I
And
think so.
Al went into the bath. We would go to a hotel or whatever because he had a lot of friends that had those
free stays. We'd get a free stay every once in a while.
at those extended stay hotels that they have. And he went into the bathroom to go to the bathroom. His drink was sitting right there. And, you know, he never took it with him anymore because I was 13 months sober. I was never drinking, and it didn't bother me that his drink was there. And I, tell you the truth, I did not even think twice about it. Just grabbed it and took a sip out of it. I wasn't even thinking. And there it was, down my throat, before I had a chance to even think about it. He came around the corner just as I took a sip. And all hell broke loose.
Wow.
It was, vampire, you're a vampire. I
didn't
mean,
say
that's
you were
all
a vampire.
No, but that's all I remember hearing is,
Yeah.
you're just like a vampire. As soon as you get a taste, you're not going to want to quit.
Right, which is true. They say
It is
one,
true.
one is too many, 1,000 not enough.
And for a while, I've told Al this before, but for like the first couple weeks, I blamed it completely on him.
leaving it out there.
Because he's saying, nope, because he's saying that I was a vampire. Like
wow.
a vampire.
Can I?
Because I seriously thought I would be able to quit after that first drink.
And that's when life imploded.
And what do they say about alcoholics?
Yeah.
You have a drink, you're not going to be able to quit after that first drink.
Yeah.
And then after a couple weeks, I admitted to him that I had been blaming it all on him because it was too late now.
And this
I'm like,
was
that
after
was-
Epic, right?
Yeah, no, before
No,
Epic.
this was
Before
way
Epic,
before.
okay.
This was
then.
before my two
This was
DUIs.
all
Okay.
before, 2016, and that's when
And
shit really hit
as
the
she
fan.
said about progressive, the disease being progressive, every time I relapsed, it got so
Worse.
much more out of control
Yep.
for me. So before this, I had never been to jail, ever. I have gotten away with, you name it, I've gotten away with it. How many times have I drank and drove? So many, you know. So I started a job that same year, 2017, at Dino Nobel. So she had been my sponsor about 2 years. And so I started in February. By April, I had my first DUI. Went to jail for the first time. Scared the living shit out of me. By June, I had my second DUI. Of the same year.
So April and June.
April and June.
Okay.
See, and if I tell the story, it seems to me like it was like 2 weeks after, but that's how screwed up shit was. But
Yeah.
I didn't mean to.
How long? I mean, not on timeline, but you're in April. You get your DUI. How long were you in jail for? Were you just in overnight or?
5 days, 4 days.
Okay, so 4 days you get back out.
Yeah, it was, I don't know if you've been to jail before.
Nope, I've been on
Okay.
that. I've been to the jail. I've got friends that work on the other side, but never been.
Okay. So,
Bailed my wife out once.
they have this, it's like I don't know what it's called, where you go in and you're booked in and then,
Like a holding.
like, yeah,
Holding
it's
tight.
the hold thing.
Mhm.
It's like 4 days before they choose to file on you or not.
Mhm.
If they don't file on you, then you get released automatically. So they didn't choose to file on me, so I got released, but then I had to go to court in May for it. And on your first DUI, you don't have to go to jail unless the judge decides to be an asshole, which that first judge was. But then on my second DUI, I had to spend 5 days in jail, and that was for this part of the sentence. So I went to jail. Oh, it was 10 days.
Yeah, it was almost 2 weeks that
Yeah.
you were there.
And so I lost my job at Dino Nobel because I was only worked there for 4 months because of the two DUIs and just because I was drunk. That's when I started drinking during work. I'd go to lunch and I'd have a bottle in my truck. Geez, what
Well,
else
to me,
can
it just
I
is
say about-
progress and progress and
It
insanity.
does.
And pretty
It
soon you guys are
progresses.
living this life of insanity that us outsiders looking in are just like, do you know how insane this is?
Mm-hmm.
It was just your life. That's why I'm saying it's so different today.
No, it
What
is.
changed after all these years of the same 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 dance? You know what I mean?
Two things.
It's just incredible.
We'll definitely get there. We'll definitely get there.
Yeah, two things. You and I.
You need to patent
We
it.
both changed so much in the last year. But I actually I've been to, how many? 4 rehabs?
7 total.
4 rehabs. one 3 times.
Okay, maybe that's what
So,
it is.
yeah, that's what it is, honey. So I went,
That's awesome.
first one was Recovery Ways. I went to Phoenix Recovery 3 times. I absolutely love them, but
You went
all
to,
the people I loved moved to Corner Canyon.
you went to Wasatch.
I went to Wasatch Recovery, and I went to, I think that's it.
Epic, and then
No,
Odyssey.
those are an Epic and Odyssey. An Epic and Odyssey are both state run.
So that's still 7. Never mind. It doesn't matter.
Isn't that what we discussed? 7. I went to
Okay.
one 4 times.
Okay.
It's like, how many marriages versus how many husbands have you had? They can be 2 different answers.
Yeah.
That's right.
That'll be another podcast.
Okay. We'll bring that up later.
Yeah, that's good for you and Al.
So you talk about.
Oh, except for he has wives, not husbands.
So we're trying to get obviously to the positive side of this, and I think throughout the whole thing it is positive because we're releasing those things, and this is again your guys' story of how you've been through it. We've got a lot of listeners, I'm sure, that listen to this, and they may have gone or are going through that same thing, and to take away so far on this is to not give up hope. You know, again, love's a very powerful thing, and forgiveness is a very powerful thing, and we're all human. Things may get the most of our emotions, but don't give up hope. And to go back into your guys' story, Al, and if I may, being very vulnerable, with your permission, I've got a question for you.
Okay.
So you talk about, and this is just something that I'm curious, because you had your coke with your job, right? Lost your job because of it, and then you guys went through that moment where you opened back up to coke. In the process of dealing with some of this stuff, was there a time that coke was also too there?
No.
Not that it's relevant, but I'm just seeing like you had things.
It wasn't, but it did slowly start coming into effect, I think, around the year that she was saying. And it got to the point to where, because I didn't drink or anything around her, you know, because I wanted her to get sober. But then as time went and she was doing so good, and she's like, hey, look, if you want to have a drink, you know, I'm okay. And it's funny because drinking, I really didn't care if I had a drink or not, you know.
He's been more of a coke man.
Yeah, but when I did have it, it's like, oh, well, I want to drink, because you hear people in AA say all the time, one goes with the other, you know, and it does.
Oh, absolutely.
And I'm grateful to say that at least I could do that on a part-time basis. It wasn't something that
Part-time.
it wasn't something that grabbed a hold of me, you know, where it's like I had to have it every single day, you know.
feel like
But
you used it as a coping mechanism?
I did use it for a coping mechanism. I mean, so even the times when I was at my job, I mean, that was my frickin' release. I mean, because when the weekend came after a hard week out there at the plant, I mean, I was just like, holy shit, I am just so frickin' exhausted, and I got to do something, you know. And I mean, you
cut the grass.
You can well, and that's what I did. That's what I did on Friday, man. I'd start doing my lines and pounding my beer, and I was out doing my yard work, made my yard look beautiful. Our yard, I should say, our yard beautiful. And by the time she got home from work, I had already polished off a 12-pack.
I was always
You know?
so pissed because our yard already looked good. I absolute love weeding, and it was already done by the time I got home.
Why? Because man, I was going. I was having some fun. You know, stereos turned up in the garage. I'm listening to the old rock and roll tunes. You know,
I do have to give him that. At least I know. I mean, yeah, he was lying to me for a year, and I was really upset about that, and I got really resentful. But at least I know. I mean, he had that release because he worked his ass off, and I have to admit that he had a shitty boss, and he worked his ass off anyway, and he didn't get half the credit for it at work. But he shouldn't have lied to me for a year.
No.
But to go back to answer your question, I mean, yeah, that was kind of the release, and I told that same story at a talk 2 weeks ago at Corner Canyon, and that same kid that I mentioned earlier, he asked that. He's like, "Did you feel guilty that you were the one that caused her to take that drink?" And I did, and of course, she even shared it for the first couple of weeks. Man, she made sure I freaking knew it. I mean, she was pointing the finger at me, and I'm going, "Damn, guilty as charged." You know.
After taking that sip of his drink, and now you come out and you're like, right? Sorry, I'm not really good at
sound
effects. Okay, but
Sound.
Right, but with that. After you took that sip, did you instantly go right back into drinking really heavy, or obviously
No.
pointing the finger back at him?
I was trying really hard not to.
Do
I was
controlled.
trying really hard to stay sober, even at that one drink. That night, for sure, I didn't have any more to drink that night. I cannot remember all that well how slow I took it. Do you remember at all?
No, you were just kind of putting it down when I came around the corner, but all I remember is that our night was kind of over after that because I was pissed as hell.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously.
I was pretty pissed at myself.
We could have
too,
just
so,
packed our shit
yeah.
up and went back home as far as I cared. 'cause
But isn't that
the
so
night was over
interesting
with.
that you can use cocaine together? It's totally fine. But then this other substance, you had that reaction because
Yeah.
of. It's
Yeah,
just,
It's like PTSD because
Yeah.
you're gonna go through. You're like,
Yeah.
shit. Here we go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Here we
The
go.
rodeo
Yeah,
just
that's what
started.
it is for him.
What
Yeah.
next? Now
More
I'm gonna
like
be
a
looking for the
PTSD
bottles.
him. Yeah.
She's gonna go into rehab or get
Well,
arrested.
and she never got. And I think that was something where it's like, okay, well, now I can chill and I can relax and I can have my wife do that with me, because with this,
She's not going to get all
she's not
crazy.
losing control.
Right.
You know, and again, it's stupidity, but we're not seeing the stupidity at the time, which is crazy because we get so wrapped up with everything. And I'm not saying that as an excuse because it's really not, but we let it take us in. And sometimes it takes a little while before that frickin' light bulb goes off and you're going, what the frick was I thinking? I think there's a country song out there that's called that. What the hell am I thinking?
What was I
Or what
thinking?
what was I thinking? But yeah, it's that whole thing is just kind of crazy. But
Yeah.
can we stop for a break? Because my bladder is full.
Oh, wow.
yeah. So
All right.
I think we're pretty close
Yes.
to being done.
So
Okay.
with that, coming back, we'll wrap this up. But coming back, we were going to go into where you guys are at over the last. We know where you guys have been.
Yeah.
Everything that you guys have been through. Let's come back to where you guys are now, and what you do regularly to keep you on the right track of keeping that sobriety, and what we can share to our audience, tips and tricks that you found that maybe they haven't tried that may help them out as well. So
I love it. I think that'll help because I know Trish has been
I'm
like,
over here.
what's happened now? I mean, what's the
Where are you
difference?
guys at?
So I think that'd be great.
Well,
Okay.
because you've painted such a picture, right?
Right.
Such a dismal, grim, insane, chaotic, unmanageable, picture. Yeah,
And here we are,
And here
holding
we are.
hands, doing a
it's
podcast.
a beautiful thing.
all right.
Can't wait.
Well, at
Be
least
right
we're
back.
not doing something else during a podcast.
That's true.
All right.
All right, guys.
Hi, this is Tamara K. Anderson, and I want to share something special with you. When our son Nathan was diagnosed with autism, I felt like the life we had expected for him was ripped away, and with it, my own heart shattered as well. It's very common for families to feel anger, pain, confusion, and anxiety when a child is diagnosed. this is where my book, Normal for Me, comes into play. It shares my story of learning to replace my pain with acceptance, peace, joy, and hope. Normal for Me has helped change many lives, and I'd like to give this book to as many families as possible. We've put together something I think is really special. My friends and listeners can order copies of my book at a significantly discounted price, and we will send them to families who have just had a child diagnosed with autism or another special needs diagnosis. We will put your name inside the cover so they will know someone out there loves them and wants to help. I will also sign each copy. You can order as little as one or as many as hundreds to be shared with others. So go to my website, tamarakanderson.com, and visit the store section for more information and to place your order. You can bless the lives of many families by sending them hope, love, and peace. Check it out today at tamarakanderson.com and help me spread hope to the world.
Welcome to the Resilience Talk Network. My name is Jay Walter, and I'm the host of Rebuilding, heard every weekday night from 6 to 7 p.m. You can listen in and learn how to face your fears, overcome obstacles, and make dreams a reality. So listen every weekday night from 6 to 7 p.m. right here on the Resilience Talk Network.
All right, guys. Thank you. Back to the last part here on the other side of addiction. We're gonna give a real quick thank you again to our other sponsors that we have. We've got I Am Power Ninja Real Estate, and again, thank you guys. Fitness Realty and Advanced Business Books. Again, thank you guys for your sponsorship and for your support. Again, greatly appreciated. And without you guys, again, this wouldn't be possible. Again, I'm going to keep giving it, and I know it's a lot, but again, Brad for Resilience Talk Network. And then something that we are doing, guys. There's a thumbs up from Brad behind the scenes.
Yay!
And with that, guys, something else too that we're doing, just a small sponsorship, but I work for Affiliate Solar. I'm an independent rep here in the state and across the country, but what we've done, we've come up with a way that those that high utility bills and would like to look at it, I'm giving away complimentary vacations to multiple places here in the country, as well as anybody that does go with renewable energy. Money is being donated here at the station and to the other side of addiction for the cause, and we want to be able to help people. So if you need that, reach out, and you're able to look me up on Facebook, JD Greenouch, or you can email me at jd@affiliatesolar.com. So with that, guys, diving back into it, let's go. Now we're getting to the part of what you guys do to keep moving forward, what you guys are doing to consciously be aware of, obviously, the environment, what's around you, and being a team, and how you guys have stuck through this, even when you've had moments of pulling apart, that glue just pulled you back together. And what you guys, on a daily basis, what are you doing to be able to keep moving forward and keep that glue and to keep growing stronger and being
the
better?
first thing I would like to say is that, no matter how much Al tried to make me think that he didn't love me anymore and that he was done and he wasn't going to do this anymore, I always knew there was something inside of me that always told me that he's not going to give up on me. And no matter how much I tried to sabotage us, consciously or subconsciously, I knew that we were meant to be together. And because it was always different. It always felt different between us. And I just needed to wake up and get out of whatever funk it was in, or I was in, or whatever, and just find my strength. Especially in the last, I'm just going to say, since I got sober this last time, as I tell Al every time, tell Trish every time. This time was different. But really this time was extremely different. I went to jail, as I always do. I was being drunk in public, arguing with a police officer. That's funny, the other day me and Al were watching Cops, and I'm like, this guy knows how to be arrested. He knows how to be arrested when he's drunk, or, when he's high, is what I said, because they were doing it on pot. But golly, they were arresting these people around the corner. They'd have some cops out there, undercover cops out there, arresting them just, and they'd pull away, and then they'd arrest some more people right away. Anyway, but he just sat there. He said, yes, sir, no, sir, yes, sir. He knew how to do it. Why can't I figure out how to do that? But anyway, he was really respectful with him. I'm like, why couldn't I just have shut my freaking mouth? But anyway, so I got arrested for arguing with a police officer, or assaulting a police officer, or whatever it was. And I was just too drunk to know what I was doing most of the time, and anyway, so I got, in December of last year, well, I guess it was in November of last year, I got arrested for that, and I spent 10 days in jail. And while I was in there, it was I think it was the worst day I've ever had there. We were locked down 24/7 because of COVID. We only got 4 hours a day, 4 hours every 2 days, I think it was, out of our cell. So other times we were in our cell. And Al wasn't accepting my phone calls. I had no family to call. Nobody. I couldn't talk to anybody. I was completely alone besides God. And as I mentioned to Al and to Trish quite a few times, God is always with me when I'm in jail. At this time, he was not only with me, I felt him hold me in his arms. And he told me, this is it. This is your turn. It's time. If you do this again, you're not going to make it. You're not going to live through another one. And I felt it. And I felt it through every fiber of my being. I knew it was time. That's not to say I never got drunk again. When I got out on December 2nd, within 2 hours I was drunk again.
Is this last year?
Yeah, this last year. I went home to Al. He let me come in. I don't know what the exact conversation was. He could probably speak to that better than I could, because I was pretty drunk by the time I got there. And just before that, I had been kicked out of Odyssey House twice. Neither one of them was because of me. One was because a girl came up on me and threatened me, and then turned around and blamed it on me and said it was my fault. But I know I wasn't supposed to be there. I knew God didn't want me to there, and so I was grateful that they kicked me out. But so I was just really, really lost this last time. I knew beyond a shadow of doubt I wanted it. I wanted to be sober this time more than ever. But I was lost. I didn't know how I was going to get there, how I was going to do it. Because I knew rehab wasn't working for me. And it wasn't going to be my answer. And I was just scared and lost, and I felt alone because I had more of Al's support than I ever had before. He was denying it, but I felt it. I felt his support. And but I just felt alone because although he was supporting me, he wasn't verbally supporting me. He wasn't saying, "You got this. We got this, and we're gonna do it." It was every decision I made, every choice was all up to me, and I felt really, really scared and alone. And but I knew that God was with me, and I knew that as long as He was, that I would make it through, because He's the one thing in my life, my whole life, that has always been there. He's gotten me through so many situations and stuff, and so I just, even though I was drinking, so I drank about a week in our home, and but I can tell you, when I drink at home, I usually get up to have a cigarette, or I'm in bed the whole time. What kind of life is that,
It's a fun marriage. It's great.
Yeah. We don't talk. There's maybe 2 words every day.
Wow.
There's not much of anything.
So it's like roommates.
It's
Yeah.
not even really roommates.
Yeah.
It's like letting the dog go out to go potty. She'd go out and have her cigarette and have her drink and come back in and lay right back down. But, I mean, that's how it was.
It wasn't even like, you get to that point in your life, and you know this. It's like you're not even drinking. It's there's no buzz, there's no nothing. It's just
Keep from getting sick.
yeah. And I wake up every time you wake up, you got to get that fixed, because if you don't, you're gonna start shaking. You're gonna start, feeling awful. But this time, on this drunk that I had after I got out of jail, it was so weird, and I'd never ever felt this way. I was disoriented. I felt I could barely move, because I hadn't eaten this whole time either for a week. All I was doing was drinking and smoking. So I was disoriented. I was seeing things, hearing things. I could barely walk, if I could walk, and I couldn't hold my alcohol down. I was throwing up just as much as I was drinking it. I knew I was dying. I literally knew I was dying. And Al said, "I'm taking you to LDS hospital." And I said, "I wish you would." And I think that's the first time I've ever told him, "Please do," without a fight, or without...
At first you did.
Later.
The first time I asked you, you basically told me to get the F away from you, that you
Yeah.
wasn't going.
It's just such an automatic, though,
And
right?
so,
Yeah,
and so I
that
left
is.
her. She was out there on the frickin' lawn, just sprawled out, and I just left her there. Went back in the house, and
Wow.
I think I waited a half hour, 20 minutes, I don't even remember. Went back out there, and I was just watching her. And she's trying to lift her head up, and she couldn't lift her head up, and she'd fall back down. And I just sat there crying, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I went back out there again, and I says, "Are you ready? Are you frickin' just ready?" And she finally said, "I'm ready." And yeah. And I went up there and got her up there and basically just dropped her off and frickin' left.
And then they wouldn't take me because I had gone up there so many times and left against medical advice. So they had a cab pick me up and take me to VOA, Women's Detox. And I stayed there for 4 days, I think.
Something like that.
And I begged Al and begged him to let me come home. And he stood his ground and said no. And my daughter, Adriana, she finally answered and said that I could come stay with them. I had to promise them I wouldn't drink alcohol. And which I promised, and finally for once fulfilled that promise and didn't drink a thing. Al brought me the medications that I needed while I was there, and I was only there for maybe 2 days.
About a day and a half.
Yeah.
That's what I remember, but it could have been more.
And her husband didn't want my probation APNP to come to his house because she was on APNP couple of years before that for other things, not alcohol or drug related. My kids don't have anything to do with, well, my daughter doesn't have anything to do with that. And so he just didn't want to be involved with AP&P and didn't really want to be responsible for me, I guess. And so he wanted me to leave. And so I called Al again and I begged him, and finally he said he would let me stay, but there was nothing between us anymore. And which I believed to an extent, but at the same time I believed in God and what he wanted for me more than I believed Al, because I just believe what he believes more than I do anybody else. And so I said, you know what church says all the time, actions speak louder than words do, and I will just prove it to him. I will just show him, because I've changed. Things have changed for me. I don't want to die, and I definitely don't want to lose Al. So, I want my kids back in my life, and I want my life back. The desire to drink was no longer there. Desire to feel that way was no longer there. Everything was taken away from me. And so he came and got me for my daughters, and slowly I got a job at Savers within probably 2 weeks of living with you.
No.
Because I left the OA on the 9th. No. I was there on the 9th. That's when I got sober, December 9th of last year. And then I was there for 4 days. And then, so it was like the 17th I came home to you. And then,
I don't know.
So it was about 10 days. Because I started at Savers on the 29th.
All I know is when you came back, and we're getting to the story of how we've gotten this far. But,
yeah. So now you can
even when I let her back in under the roof, of course, my stipulation was if she drank, she was out on the street again. If I even had a feeling she was drinking, she was out on the streets. For once, after all these flipping years, and again, I guess I had to take this road for it to happen, but I finally set my boundaries. Because in AA, they teach addicts and alcoholics to set boundaries. Well, what about our boundaries? Well, I never set any, so I finally set my boundaries, and I stuck to them. But she was really messed up. Did you have something?
I was just going to say it's interesting because to me, you had said what's different this time, but she could say the same thing back to you. What's different this time? It was different for you as well.
It was different, yeah, because
enough.
And she wasn't coming out of detox the way she's always came out of detox. She was effed up.
Oh yeah.
It scared me because
I forgot about that.
We're 10 years in age difference, and she's younger than me, and I'm watching this woman literally shuffle her feet. She couldn't take a step. She had to shuffle her feet. And whenever she would get frustrated because she'd come out she'd want to try to tell me something, and she'd be like, and I'd be like, what? And I'm thinking she's drinking. And then I'm like, no, she's not drinking because she hasn't even frickin' hardly walked out of this house.
Right.
And I'd be, what? And she'd be, and she'd shuffle her feet.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, okay, well, usually after she gets out of detox, the medicine that they give you to kind of help you act a little bit of drunk. But I'm like, I've not ever seen this from her before. So this went on for 3 or 4 days, I think, or something, and I finally called my uncle up, and I'm like, Uncle Scott, I need your help. Would you please do a blessing for Jenann? Because I think she's frickin' dying, because I've never seen her like this before. And my uncle says, you come back at 7 o'clock, come down to Faye and I's house at 7 o'clock, and we'll do a blessing for her. And I remember getting to my aunt and uncle's, and they give her a hug, and my Uncle Scott's helping her in the house, and my aunt looks at me, and she's just like, I mean, she saw it. And anyway, we had this blessing. My uncle actually even gave me a blessing. And not too long after that blessing, all of a sudden, Jenann started coming back. Her steps started getting further ahead. Her speech started coming back. And she started getting this determination that she's going to go find a job. She was working on trying to find a job. And she was succeeding at that. And she finally got to where she was somewhat normal. And I remember she came home one day and she goes, "We need to talk." And I'm like, "Okay." And she's like, "I feel like you're leaving me behind." And I'm like, "Okay." You know, I'm just being this tough, ornery, ignorant asshole, you know, going, "Okay, yeah, whatever." And she goes, "It's almost like you're getting on with your life without me." And I'm like, "I am." Because when I decided to let her back in this last time, I'm like, I'm not getting on this frickin' merry-go-round anymore. I have been on it long enough. I'm not going there anymore. I mean, you know, I had thought about killing myself because of this shit that has been going on. And so I told her, I'm like, "Yeah, you're right, I am. I'm going. And you can either jump on this train with me or not. It's your choice." And I remember her asking me, "Do you want me to?" And I remember when she asked me that, really thinking, going, "Holy shit, what do I say to this?" That, you know,
It's a trick question.
Yeah, is it a trick question? Because sometimes women have a way of doing that to us, you know.
It's a no-win.
It's a no-win. So,
Fair enough.
but I'm like, you know what? Yeah, I'd love to have you jump on with me, but as long as you're sober, because I'm not playing this frickin' game anymore. I started seeing a vision for me opening up. I still didn't know what it was, but the light was getting brighter, and I'm thinking, I'm going after it. I'm changing, and I've been changing for 12 years, but I'm still changing, if that makes sense. I just shared on a podcast the other day that there's no finish line. We should constantly be working on becoming better, because there is no damn finish line. And I wanted her to be along on the trip with me.
Yeah.
And then the podcast starts up, and things are kind of going really awesome with this podcast.
Okay, wait, hold on.
Huh?
Let's slow down.
Okay, am I getting too far ahead?
Yes,
Okay.
because the question was, how do we do this?
I know, but that's what I'm getting to.
But see, we skipped over. You just started a conversation that you and I were having,
Okay.
and then you stopped in the middle of it and started on the podcast. You didn't even finish the conversation. So I said yes, and
Okay.
then we made this agreement that we'd give it 6 months,
That's right. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
and if it was still working out in 6 months, then we'd stay together.
Yeah.
But I don't think we even gave it 6 months.
Yeah.
We both could see the change in each other way sooner than that. I mean, because that was in, I think, March that we had that conversation.
Yeah, it was around March, because that's
And-
when we first started recording.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah. So, and that's right. And I'm glad you brought that up, babe, because it's like, we'll give it 6 months, and we'll
Which
see.
was supposed to be June.
We'll
and
see where
by
things
June
went.
we were already
Yeah.
past
Great.
even any kind of 6 month thing.
And then, I mean, our communication started changing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's something we are still working
Sure.
on, because we still start falling back into that old pattern, but sometimes it takes us a little while, but we start reeling ourselves back in. But when certain things that she did, instead of me attacking her like I used to attack her, which that's our human nature, you making me feel like shit, so I'm going to show you, you know. which someone wrote on Facebook the other day. It's amazing that we do that. What gives us, just because we love each other, what gives us the right to treat you that way? But we seem to feel like we have that right when we don't. But I started telling her, can I say something? And she'd say, okay, what? And I'm like, when you say this or when you do this, this is how it makes me feel, or I feel this way.
I'm still working on his I feel statements with him.
When you do this. And so basically I'm taking the blame away from her and I'm putting it on me, saying, this is how I feel. And she started doing it. And of course she already had those skills.
Sure.
But it got to where...
But not being able to communicate about it closes it off. So she knew if you would do something, how it would make her feel, but she knew how to express that to you.
Mm-hmm.
So it would lead right back into...
Yeah.
Where we were going. Communication's key, guys.
I got to tell you how powerful this is, because my husband and I's success this go round is this exact, not game, if you will, but Brene Brown, who I love, author, she talks about the story we tell ourselves. And so my husband would say something, where's the peanut butter? I can't find the peanut butter. And I would stop and say, honey, what I hear you saying is, you eat all our food, you're this, you're that, and I don't love you anymore. And he'd just be like,
what?
Wait a minute. I just said there's no peanut butter. And as ridiculous as that sounds, it was just a fun way to get vulnerable and transparent. Because I think it's so interesting in these intimate relationships that we have. We are so afraid to tell the other person what we're thinking or feeling or telling ourselves. Because then you might know what I'm really like, and you won't love me anymore. It's just such a bizarre thing.
Right?
But when you have nothing to lose, where you guys are, and you start doing that, what happens? You just build this incredible, intimate, beautiful thing just by simply getting vulnerable and transparent.
And that's...
Who knew? And
that's exactly where things started going, because she started doing the same thing with me. And she would do this quite a few times when she'd get out of rehab, because that's what they teach you in rehab. But it would last just a very short time.
Sure.
But because I go back to my own ways.
But would you get point to that point, like again in that communication of fear, like having that communication? Hey, this is how this situation makes me feel, or when this happens, or when you say this is what it does. Almost like preventative maintenance. When you put it out there firsthand, so they have an understanding. It's that relationship you didn't have. It's also building your boundaries, right? Like when you go into a relationship, you're like, hey, hey, you're great, you're wonderful, I love you, or I'm falling in love with you, but like, hey, like for us to progress, like this is my fence, and this is where I'm at, and and I want to know your fence as well, but we got to respect that.
Oh yeah.
If you're not. I learned it in sociology when I was in college.
Oh yeah,
I
love sociology.
But talking about your yard and then the house and then the different parts of the house, right? Like each thing represents something different, but you got to have those boundaries. So in that, you would, in moments leading up to where you guys are now, where you were at in the past, you had those same similar things. Like, hey, when you do this, it makes me feel like this, or has this effect, but you couldn't communicate it, or that you wanted to communicate it, but you felt like you would have been shamed for doing so anyways.
Yeah, I have a really hard time telling people how I feel. Because I have been shamed many times in my life. Starting with my father. And Al has got as close as anybody has ever gotten with me being free to say how I feel. But there's been a couple times, even in the last 6 months, that I have said how I would like him to address me, and he's bitten my head off for it. And it would take him a couple days, but he'd have to come back and say, I apologize that I treated you that way, and that was not my intention. So we're learning off each other, not just communicating better, we're learning from each other how each other wants to be treated or talked to. Yeah. And so I think that's
the other thing I hear a lot too is you got to the place where you could accept each other for where they were at.
Yes.
Exactly where they're at. not putting up with stuff, but accepting and
Yeah.
allowing them the space.
Yeah.
Well, and one of the biggest things I had to work on throughout all this is when she would be into the drinking or the crap that was going on in her life, man, I'm freaking good at nitpicking.
Oh my God.
And because I was still so hurt, that was my way of basically irritating
Shaming
the
me.
shit out of her.
Shaming
Yeah, and
me.
shaming her.
Wow.
You know, because I could find any little teeny thing,
You knew.
but it was that irritation. And again, I had to pull the reins back and do some soul searching and go, I knew I was doing it. And I literally had to knock myself upside the head and go, frickin' knock it off. Why are you doing this when she's working so hard and you're still trying to,
And change her.
you know? It's like that irritated brother or sister when you're in the back seat and it's like poking, you know, and stop poking me. You just keep doing it to irritate the shit out of them. That's what I was doing.
Huh.
And so it took a lot for me to finally pull back and go, why am I doing this? Because I shouldn't be doing this. She's working on becoming this new person and getting better, and I need to back off. And I just recently have done this here and again in the last couple of weeks where I'm always on her about her smoking, you know, and it's like, well, shit, Al, which one do you want? You know, do you want her to drink or not drink? Do you want her? I mean, I'd love to see her do both, but that drinking had a hold of her so bad that, I mean, smoking doesn't take our life down the rabbit hole that the alcohol did.
Sure.
So I have now started working on, okay, I'm not going to nag on her about her smoking. I'm going to do everything just to take a deep breath, just get it released however I need to get it released, because that's her right now, and just let it be, because it's not her smoking that's causing me to feel the way. It's me feeling the way because of whatever it's inside here is making me feel that way. And I've really had to, and I really have to credit a lot of this stuff because of our podcast, because of the people that we are bringing on the show and listening to them.
You're not crediting
You
me
know?
for how much I've taught you.
Hey, of course I credit you for a lot.
But it's one of those things,
But,
like
yeah,
in a
I
relationship, you know.
Okay, this show's over.
And I'm just relating this because, again, like, communication-wise, too, with my wife, for example, you know, and it's like she can say something one way, but it's like, yeah, but you don't understand. This is what you're doing. This is how it makes me feel, right? And
Yeah.
going back and forth with them, but then having everybody that we've been working with within this, you know, you take that because it could be the exact same thing that Jenann said to you, but you heard it a little bit different from
Yeah.
somebody else.
Oh, yeah.
And, you know, I've had that moment where I said
Oh,
something
yeah.
that somebody else said almost word verbatim, and then they're like, oh, that makes sense. But this person like, what?
Yeah.
You know, and you're like,
Hey,
and it happens.
that's
but,
so funny.
but it happens. Like, again, Trisha, you know, going through, you had different people that could have sponsored, you know, but it was her. That people could have been saying the exact same thing or almost parallel to what you were saying,
Good
but
point.
it was you. Something with you that bulb went off.
Right.
You know, it's the same thing because sponsors and stuff, or, you know, whether it be alcohol or a drug or anything, sex addict and stuff, you're dealing with people that have been in it and it affected them differently, but it's the same, leads down to it's that substance, right? Again, parallel stories in that aspect, but it's different. And it's how
Yeah.
it works with people, you know? I've had people do that and they're like,
Yeah.
hey, JD, do it this way,
It's
do it
like-
this way.
I don't know how much I should say, but I asked Charity to talk to my daughter about some things that my daughter is having issues with, and it's because, I mean, I could probably help her pretty good, but Charity's been through the same kind of issues my daughter has been through, and I thought, you know, she'd probably rather hear it from somebody besides her mother.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I think it's
absolutely.
easier for everybody to hear it from somebody other than somebody they love.
Well, and I'm doing the same thing. I deal with that with my mom. My mom still looks at me like I'm just her son. Like, what do I know? You know, she's got this. She's got to. You hold that platform, you know. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
over your kids,
Good way of
right?
putting a platform,
Yeah, over your kids,
But
you know.
it's a
Again.
powerful thing, you know.
Well, that works both ways because my daughter will say, "You're just my mom. What do you know?"
Exactly.
You know?
Well,
So it works both ways.
It does, but that's what I'm saying. Is it is different because it's like the advice, especially when you know like what we've learned and what we've been through. When you give that advice to a loved one, you know it's good. It's like, hey, just apply this, no matter
Right,
what
right.
it is, right?
Right. Mhm.
You're like, apply this. Or when you're talking to your kids, like, hey, the reason why I'm telling you not to do this is because I hit that wall really hard.
Yeah.
But all right, well, you're gonna go hit it, and then your friend's gonna tell you exactly what I just told you,
And you're gonna
you'll
hear
be
it.
like, oh, okay,
Listen to
I
it.
understand it.
I get
What-
what you're saying.
What was you say? You was getting ready to say something.
I was
Yeah.
just going to say something that I've kind of heard throughout this podcast is I get it because I got it. Me or Jenann and I get it because I got it, just like you get it when you talk to others that are on the other side. There's just something powerful in that. You know, the treatment center I went to, not saying you have to be in recovery to be able to help people, but at this particular treatment center, everybody was in recovery, from the CEO down to the handyman. And I remember how powerful that was because I had been trying to explain to people for years what it was like to be me. Years.
Yeah.
And, you know, they just didn't get it. To this day, I try to tell my 84-year-old dad what it's like. I catch myself, and he's just never going to get it. And it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
But there are some of those people you just want them to understand. And that's why it's so awesome to have this, so she can, you know, share things with at least one other person besides her husband that she can be completely honest with and share the crazy and da-da-da-da and kind of navigate through things.
Well, and you're able to relate 'cause
Yeah.
you've been down the road.
it's
you know
a
what
powerful-
it's,
powerful
it is
thing.
different.
Yeah, when you can, when you can get in the same pond as the other fish that are swimming in that same pond. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
you can get in a pond that's all clear and free, but
we're not saying to to understand it, go try it. That's
No,
not,
no.
no, yeah. Definitely, but
We don't encourage the use of alcohol in this place.
yeah.
In
But
this
you know,
manner.
I mean, it makes sense. I mean, you put a fish in muddy water that has a hard time seeing after being in clear water, it's not going to know what to do. But if it was around dirty water all the time, it's gonna. I mean,
No,
No
exactly.
matter
yeah,
that.
it's going to know. And again, it's like I've had people come to me and say, "We want on your show, help us understand why the addict side of it." And we can't help you understand. Now, the addict may be able to try to help you understand, but you're still not going to get it because you're not in their shoes. Until we step foot in those same shoes and we live that same life, we're never going to understand the full capacity of it.
Right.
You know, and that's why I say
And vice versa.
I've come to the point where I've realized I can learn more about it and I can do things to help me that can help my wife, that can help both of us. But for me to continue to fight to get the whole picture, I finally threw in that towel and say, you know what? I'm going to know and learn what I can learn. And it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
It's okay because I don't need to know everything. I
Right.
don't. And it's so cool about this show of hearing all this, the diversity of guests that we've had and the specialists that we've had on our show that's talked about trauma and different things. And I think we even share on the show, there's so many people out there that live this pretend life, and man, no one's living a frickin' fantasy life. If there is, it's probably a very, very small percentage.
Hey.
We're all battling some. Yeah, well, JD.
JD.
might
I
be.
forget about JD over there.
Yeah.
Well, I just have to say how inspiring you both have been in my own life, and it's weird that it has helped me in my own life. Watching you, being part of this to the degree I am, it's a beautiful, beautiful process.
Well, thank you.
I mean, it's funny when you said you don't regret anything. I mean, if you really think about that, that's a pretty powerful message too. That when you're in the throes of it, in the thick of it, it doesn't feel very good, or the uncertainty. Mm-mm. But man, when you get to the other side and the lessons that you learn, and I'm sure your relationship today is probably deeper than it ever has been.
Yeah.
But thank you for, just allowing me part of your life, because it is an honor to watch. It's been incredible. I'm sure you've helped a lot of people.
Yeah.
Thank you
Remember
so much.
how I used to always say, to you. I hate those people that get up in AA and say, I'm a grateful alcoholic. Remember?
I do.
And I can honestly say today I'm a grateful person in recovery. My husband doesn't like it when I say alcoholic.
Don't label
label.
yourself. Don't label yourself. Yeah.
But I get it now. I get it.
Wow.
I'm so grateful to be sober.
We had some guys on the show that JD and I interviewed, Nick and Ryan. Matter of fact, their show's coming up here pretty soon. But Nick made the comment about
They're from the Tribu Giants.
Oh,
about
gotcha.
looking at life. And he says so many of us are looking at life ahead of ourselves. Now, yes, we do want to look out, like JD has said, we want to look out the big windshield. We don't want to look in the rearview mirror because it's smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree with that 100%. But he's like, go back and connect the dots backwards. And by connecting the dot backwards, you'll be able to see why you're where you're at.
Hmm.
And that is so true, because when I was looking in the mirror during the weekends, when we were partying on the weekends and looking in the mirror saying, God, please help me. I know if I continue to, even though I was only doing it Fridays and Saturday nights, I'm saying, if I continue down this road, it's probably not going to end well, and well, he helped me. Not the way I wanted it to help,
Yeah.
but he helped me. And then we talked about the different jobs and different things and the stuff Jenann's gone through and I've gone through. And I go back now and I start connecting those dots. Every one of those dots has put me right here. Right here where I'm supposed to be. And Jenann said a month ago or so, she was here in the studio with us. And on the way home, she goes, just jokingly, she goes, I want you to know I take full credit for this podcast because you wouldn't be doing it if it wasn't for me. And we're kind of giggling, and I'm thinking, no, she's 100% right. If it wasn't for the alcoholism and all the crap that we went to, again, connecting the dots backwards to where we're at today,
Wow.
we wouldn't be here because of, if it wasn't for this. And now people like ourselves and JD, and when Laurie was on the show, and co-hosts like yourself and Janessa and Melody and Charity, I mean, they've all come in and we're all sharing this flippin' message that people are getting because they're watching, and it's such a thrill to see that Jenann and I know, so Jenann and I can take our experiences, and not saying that, there are relationships out there, and I've talked with people who have been in addictive relationships, and they're like, man, good for you, but it just wasn't for me. And some of them are abusive, and hell yeah, you get the hell out of those, because no one deserves to be beat, men or women, in a relationship. But it's so cool to see where the hell we are at, and how we can share what our pain and stuff. JD's lost a sister because of things, and he had to grow up before his time. And Trish, you've got a ton of stories, and Jenann's got her stories, and it's just so incredible that God has put us right here where we're at. And I when I say my prayers, so many times during my prayers, I thank God, thanks for putting us here, and thanks for holding our hands and carrying us through the frickin' storms, because we went through so frickin' many. So many stories. How you and I both are not in jail, or how we've not killed one another, is beyond me, because those times were close.
There's been a couple times that we were close, yeah.
But there was a reason behind all that, and I don't want to keep going because we got to end the show. But I was a guest on a co-host a couple months ago, and the gentleman asked me, he goes, what was one of the greatest lessons that you've learned throughout all this pain and everything that you've gone through? And he told me he was going to ask me this question before the show. And I thought about it, and I wrote an answer down on a piece of paper. So I'm like, I'll be ready for you when you ask me. Well, end of the show comes, and he asked me. That's not the answer that I gave. And I literally stopped because it's almost like I was surprised at the question. And the more I thought about it, I just got this just strong feeling that the greatest lesson I learned through all this was to learn how to forgive. Because everything that Jenann and I went through, and as close as we came to splitting up, and just some bad things could have really happened. I knew that if I did not forgive her, there was no way in hell we were ever going to go anywhere further. We were not going to even move one frickin' centimeter further if that forgiveness wasn't there. And we were talking about it today coming home from our granddaughter's soccer game, that my brains had a way of pushing back a lot of the nastiness that there's things I don't remember, and then certain things, a trigger will happen, and it just shuffles it up forward really quick, you know. But it's amazing how I've been able to push it back, and I think it's because of that forgiveness. It's like it doesn't serve me in my life right now. What serves me in my life is doing this show, helping other people, giving them a place for a voice, spending time with my wife, seeing this person who I've known for 15 years, seeing her break out of her shell. I mean, she is not the same person she was coming up on 10 months ago.
Wow.
She's not even close, you know. I'm watching her going out and talking to people, socializing, and I'm like, who the hell is this woman? Because I've never, you know, someone even looked at her before and she'd be like, what the hell's that bitch looking at? It's like, what makes you think they're judging you? Because they're looking at me, you know? And now she's not that way, you know? Now
Sometimes
well, but it's still that learning process.
Sure.
But, you know, now she'll see someone in the store and, oh, I like that blouse. And she'll go up and, hey, where did you get that blouse? And I'm going, man, who is this gal, you know? But it's so cool to see just the steps. And I could keep going, but I know we've been on the show long enough, but I need to end. But, yeah, I just want, I'll just say it right here. I love you, babe.
Love you too, honey.
Appreciate everything that we've gone through to get us to this point, because it's also helped me become a better person as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm done. JD, take over.
All right. No,
Thanks,
thank you
Al.
guys again.
Wow.
Thank you guys for again being here, and Jenann for, you know, being here and telling your story and stuff. You know, I know a lot of our audience has been anticipating this for some time, and again, as the host and again wife, you know, you guys' story is incredible, and every day, you know, we're gonna be presented with different challenges in life, and you know, that love, that bond, and that guidance through with each other and sticking by each other's side. You guys are gonna go far. So thank you.
Thank you.
So with that said, wrapping things up, again, thank you for everybody that's listening to this, and if you know somebody that needs to hear this message, please share it. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button. We love your comments and stuff and feedback. And then I'm going to wrap it up with Al's saying, you know, shit.
You want me to say it?
Yep, I'll let you say
I'll
it.
wrap
'Cause
it up.
I had it down in my head, and now it just went blank.
As we end every show, guys, keep this in mind. Addiction is giving up everything for one thing. Now I'm getting emotional, and recovery is giving up one thing for everything.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.